Good afternoon. I'd like to call our special council meeting of Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 to order at 2 p.m. And want to acknowledge that we're holding today's meeting in the traditional territory of the Osage First Nations. Joining me here in the council chamber is Councillor Garnett, and joining us via video conference are Councillors Fallett, Rintoul, Duncan, and O'Keefe. And Councillor Wainwright does send his regrets for this afternoon's meeting. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda. We do have a late item, which we would like to add as item 5, which is with regards to the COVID-19 residents survey results. And if I could have a motion.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Duncan. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And then item 4, the community statement for welcoming interprovincial travel. We have a report from staff dated Monday, July 6th.
With the recommendation that staff communicate out the town's position on welcoming visitors through tourism agencies and associations, as well as the town's website and social media channels.
Second.
Councillor Rintoul seconds. Discussion. Councillor Duncan and Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I think it's succinct and it's good and consistent with the messaging that we already have in the province. I'm just wondering if we could perhaps add something in what we sent out per Appendix A that specifically references Canada's Quarantine Act, since we know that's already been a problem for some of our American visitors. Not here. As of June 30th, just even to state that as of June 30th, Canada has extended the Quarantine Act till the end of August 31st, requiring all visitors from other countries to quarantine for 14 days when they get here. Which is consistent with what BC is saying, but pointing out that that's federal law might be important as well.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I'll turn to Ms. Verhagen.
Thank you. Through the Mayor to Councillor Duncan, in the wording it does currently say the Canadian border remains closed for recreational tourism. Sorry, I just lost my place there. While the border remains open for essential travel purposes, anyone who arrives from outside Canada must quarantine for 14 days. Just looking for confirmation that that is a section that you would like changed to specifically mention that in more detail there?
If we can just reference that's under the Canadian Quarantine Act that has been extended to August 31st.
Okay, thank you.
And include the link to that directive so that people who violate that will understand that there are perhaps hefty fines involved with that have nothing to do with what our municipality says or not.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that clarification, and that's within the body of that particular paragraph near the top of the report.
Yeah.
Were you wanting to give consideration, Councillor Duncan, to also adding that as a more succinct bullet with if you decide to travel, remember the following? Well, those are specifically health and safety precautions. Okay, I'll leave that.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I agree with the addition to the Quarantine Act. The only thing I was going to suggest is, could we perhaps leave off mention of August 31st? And the only reason I'm saying that is because there's a likelihood that it could be extended. So I'm wondering if it's better to leave it open-ended and just to say, all that I would be looking for is in that paragraph to add in, as per the Federal Quarantine Act, anyone who arrives from outside of Canada must quarantine for 14 days, and then some mention of fines or whatever else. It just gives it a bit more punch, as Councillor Duncan mentioned. In addition, I was just wondering, I wondered if we actually needed that whole bit on the bottom about please follow the province's guidelines. What I was looking for was something a bit more succinct, sometimes when people look at a long document like that, a full page, they're just kind of turned off automatically about reading it. So I was thinking the first part is fine. And in terms of follow the province's guidelines, we could provide a link to that. I think the things such as washing your hands, avoiding touching your face, those are fairly common things. And they're also sort of referenced somewhat in the paragraphs above about keeping an eye out for physical distancing guidance and safety procedures that businesses might have in place. So just a suggestion. And also, I'm just wondering if we could perhaps in the tagline change the tone a little bit slightly to say that something like Sydney is excited to welcome visits to our community, and we've taken steps to ensure a safe environment for visitors and residents. So instead of saying, here's what you need to do, it's a little more subtle thing about here's what we're doing to welcome you. And what we're hearing from the tourism industry and the retail industry is an important consideration for visitors is that a safe environment is being created. So just a suggestion for that. And then final comment, just in terms of who else we might send it to, would it be appropriate to also let our MLA and our MP be included in the distribution as well? And that's it for me.
Thank you. So you've made 4 points. I'll turn to Ms. Verhagen.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe. The task force did like the inclusion of the wording there towards the bottom, especially the reference to contacting 811 for guidance and testing. We could remove it if council sees fit. I think the thought there was that including that standard information that everybody's been hearing for so many months is just to, again, push the point home that those things are important to do while traveling and not just while at home. Thank you. To your second point on adding more to the tagline, yep, we would be happy to do that if that's council's wish. And yes, we could easily send it to the MLA and MP as well. Thank you.
Okay, just before I turn to next speakers, just with regards to your comment, Councillor, with regards to removing the August date, a suggestion I would have is we use that date until it changes, and then we will be communicating this message more than once, and so that we could certainly update if there's been a change to the date. And I think in response to a committee member, Ms. Verhagen, you, with regards to the tagline, you noted that this was the actual exact wording. And again, can you remind us of the source of that?
Yes, that came, the tagline about the smart, safe, and respectful visits, that came directly from Phase 3 of the Restart Plan from the province.
Okay. So I'm in support of that aspect, while it might be added to. And I'm personally in favor of the bottom portion, appreciating that while there is a number of messages here that we're going to be messaging in different channels, and that all of this isn't necessarily going to be used in every piece of communication. There may be portions thereof, depending on what social media or website medium is used. So thank you. I'll turn to next speaker on my list, Councillor Fallett, and Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on Councillor Duncan, I think that's a good suggestion to add that on with the Canada's Quarantine Act. I think that puts a bit more authority behind it, or just layers the authority. I'm ambivalent with August 31st. On the one hand, I see it clearly identifies that we're being, that the information is current. It also means that we have to update it, obviously, with that. If we don't put a date in there, people might say, well, is this the latest information? If the date is in there and it falls within when people are looking at it, they can say, yes, this is clearly current information. So I think I would prefer to leave August 31st in there. I think that's good. I take Councillor O'Keefe's comments regarding succinct messaging. There is a glazing of the eyes that can happen if you start to look at something that is being repeated, and the tendency may be that you then disregard an important piece of information that comes after that. So I don't know if different fonts, different color, if any of that impacts how the message is put out. I don't want to belabor it, but I think there is credibility to look at making sure that the message is as clean as possible and still retains that aspect, which is highly important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I turn to Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of comments. I concur with Councillor Keith's suggestion with respect to the tagline. I appreciate that this is out of the provincial documentation, but this is Sydney's announcement. I think Councillor Keith's suggestion made for a more positive and more welcoming opening to the document. However, with respect to the provincial guidelines and summarizing them, I think they belong in the document. I think it is incumbent on us to ensure that visitors to British Columbia, to Sydney, who may not be familiar with the BC guidelines, have these at their fingertip. Up to them if they want to click the link and go into the detail. But I think it's incumbent on us to have this information as part of welcoming people to the community, that they're familiarized with BC's provincial guidelines that are in effect here. I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll turn to Mr. Humble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one cautionary note with respect to sort of modifying it is, I guess, over-promising with respect to what we can actually do in terms of ensuring a level of safety for visitors. It could be a potential risk in terms of again maybe over-promising on the delivery of that. So it's just a cautionary note. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn to Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I agree with Councillor Rintoul. The information needs to be there. I think this is already a very succinct document. There's a lot of information here on only one page, and it's only one page, so I'm comfortable with that. And I was going to actually bring up the same point that Mr. Humble had mentioned. I mean, we can say we're providing a safe community, but we're not responsible for every person that's here, so that kind of wades into a different area altogether. Not everybody's going to practice safe distancing and the proper procedure. So, I think it's incumbent upon people when they come here to know that, there's people that don't play by the rules. So you have to be on your toes wherever you go anyways. So I'm happy with the way it's actually written. The information is current, and I like the idea of adding August 31st. And as the mayor has said, we can alter that as time goes, as it changes and the government changes its determination of when the dates are. So, other than that, I think it's a well-written document, and thank you, staff.
Thank you. So thank you for that discussion and those comments, which I know staff have noted. And so, any further discussion, Ms. Verhagen?
Just for clarity, we've had several councillors comment on adding in the August 31st date, and others who said that it should not be added. So perhaps we could get a consensus on that, just to be sure what council's direction is to staff on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
In general, we're approving the messaging, not this particular wording, but on this particular point, I think if we could have a motion just on the date and whether we have council support for including it. I don't want to get into wordsmithing, but the date I'll take separately. I'll leave it to Councillor Fellett.
I'll make the motion that we add in the date August 31st.
Seconder?
Sure, I'll second it. I said it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? We have one opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Does staff require us to make a similar clarifying statement about the provincial guidelines at the bottom?
I think they're contained within, so if somebody wanted to remove them, it would be a motion to remove. I will leave that to council. Okay, seeing none. Going back to the main motion, any further discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for the report. And so the additional item is item 5 with regards to the COVID-19 resident survey results, and there is a recommendation.
I'll move the recommendation that the COVID-19 resident survey results report be referred to the COVID-19 Recovery Task Force for its next meeting, which may be prior to it being received at the next regular council meeting.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the recommendation. I guess it's just something sort of arising from that in terms of thinking about the special task force and the other committees that are on the go and their desire to get quick information from us. And I'm wondering whether we should be thinking about whether council has an appetite to consider adding at least one other council meeting to our agenda, maybe in late July or early August, in anticipation of these 3 committees meeting and quite an aggressive list of things to do, whether that's something council might want to entertain.
Okay, just a reminder for clarification. I think we are aware of it, but for the public's benefit, we do have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for July the 13th, and we have a council meeting, regular council meeting scheduled for the 20th. If something were to arise in the next week, we could add a special council meeting to the committee of the whole, although I don't foresee it at this time. And so I think, again, going back to special council meetings, I think it's generally considered best practice to be adding meetings, special council meetings, when you have a particular topic. Appreciating that we have had some challenges as a council when we've wanted to call a special council meeting very quickly. But I will leave it up to council on that.
Yeah, I guess my rationale is around, it is an unusual time. We've observed, the amount of time it takes to emails back and forth in order to schedule special council meetings based on people's availability and staff's availability. And I guess it's just trying to be more proactive in terms of anticipating those needs and just taking a more proactive and strategic approach rather than having to scramble to schedule those.
Councillor Fellett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Keefe. That is something that's gone through my head as well, and looking at how we were trying to make this meeting happen today and respecting everybody else's time and trying to fit that all together, it certainly is better to have a prescribed meeting and say, okay, it's in our books, and if towards that meeting time we realize nothing is going to come in, we can cancel it. That might be an easier option rather than trying to fit a meeting in. Now, having said that, I'm looking through an email that received in regards to meetings for the Recovery Task Force, and we have another meeting scheduled for Tuesday the 14th. And then if I'm reading this correctly, the next one scheduled is Thursday the 30th. So we have committee of the whole on the 13th, and then council meeting on the 20th, if I believe. So then the next meeting after that scheduled is, staff can help me out, when in August is the next council or committee of the whole?
The next committee of the whole for August would be the 10th, and the council
10th.
meeting would be the 17th.
Okay, so that's the 10th and the 17th. So then there's a gap from the task force meeting on July 30th to committee of the whole meeting August the 10th. And one of the things that came out of the task force meeting was the need to be nimble, was the term used, and also to be responsive to what's happening in the marketplace, in our community, and how we need to respond. So I'm just going to add that I would prefer that we book a meeting, and if closer to the time we realize we don't need it, cancel it, rather than to hold a special or to book a special council meeting and then scramble to get everybody to fit in.
Okay. If I could, thank you for the comments, Councillor, both Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor Fallett. If I could turn back to the motion we have on the floor with regards to these resident survey results, and then if council wishes to have a motion arising with regards to council meetings, we could look to that. I had Councillor Rintoul next.
Like the others, I was not going to speak to the motion on the floor. I was going to speak out of order, so I'll wait until we pass this current item of business.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Rintoul, did you wish to continue?
I don't wish to move a motion, so you may want someone to move a motion and then move to discussion. I'm assuming someone's going to move a motion.
Councillor O'Keefe?
For the purposes of discussion, then I'll move that council add an additional meeting on Tuesday, August 4th, to the council agenda of the meeting schedule for the summer.
Do we
I
have a
believe
second?
Monday, August 3rd is that BC
The holiday.
Yeah, so I'd be open to that, or either July 27th, but for the purpose of the motion, let's just say it's Tuesday, August 4th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that for discussion.
Councillor Fallett. Councillor Rintoul?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to clarify for those who are watching and or listening to these comments. I think every member of council is completely prepared on their schedules and their availability to participate in a council meeting when it is on a scheduled council night, which is typically a Monday evening. There were some comments made with respect to challenges scheduling special council meetings. I think that's a challenge when it's during the business day and a number of us work. And so I don't want to leave the impression in the community that there's been a challenge getting this group together to meet, because that's not the case. This group has come together, as we have today, during business hours to meet and have this discussion. And I think this group would continue to make itself available to special council meeting when it's necessary. And so, I think the challenge with trying to schedule ad hoc council meetings for dates in July and August relate to not just council's planning, but also staff planning. When you note that it's vacation season and that we're looking to perhaps request insight from staff at these meetings who may have already made some personal arrangements, and frankly, in a time setting when they've been working long hours and very dedicated to their tasks at hand. So we need to have a special council meeting. Then we should schedule at a time when all council members are available. And I have found this council very agreeable to meeting on short notice. And I don't feel that there's been any difficult challenges having meetings. So I'm not going to support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I concur with Councillor Rintoul, and also I have a problem supporting a motion when not all of council is present to vote on it. So given that Councillor Wainwright is here, I wouldn't be comfortable voting on it anyways, and I would vote no against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion? Thank you for those for the comments. I support the comments made by Councillor Rintoul, and thank you for bringing it out, or mentioning particularly for the public, that this council has not had a challenge in meeting. I think that's important for the public to know. And I look forward to us to continue to schedule meetings on an as-needed basis in between our regular scheduled meetings. I won't be supporting this motion. Further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Opposed? We have 4 opposed, the motion is defeated. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. We have no further business. Ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for getting together this afternoon, Council. Thank you, staff.